On this episode of Business World, social entrepreneurship, the buzz term of our time. Social entrepreneurship is attracting growing amounts of talent, money, and attention, but along with its increasing popularity has come less certainty about what exactly a social entrepreneur is and does. As a result, all sorts of activities are now being called social entrepreneurship. Some say that a more inclusive term is all for the good, but critics argue that it's time for a more rigorous definition. The relatively new field of social entrepreneurship is growing rapidly and attracting increased attention from many sectors. The term itself shows up frequently in the media, is referenced by public officials, and has become common on university campuses, and informs the strategy of several prominent social sector organizations. The reasons behind the popularity of social entrepreneurship are many. On a visceral level, there's something inherently interesting and appealing about entrepreneurs and the stories of why and how they do what they do. People are attracted to social entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs. These extraordinary people come up with brilliant ideas and against all the odds, succeed at creating new products and services that dramatically improve our lives. But interest in social entrepreneurship goes beyond popularity with fascination in people. Social entrepreneurship signals the imperative to drive social change, and it is that potential payoff with its lasting transformational benefit to society that sets the field and its practitioners apart. Thank you for watching MDC-TV. Welcome back to Business World. For this segment, we have with us Professor Richard Tapia. He's a professor of political science and international relations here at Miami-Dade College's North Campus. Professor, welcome back. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Professor, we're talking about our topic, social entrepreneurship. What are some of the ways that we can implement social entrepreneurship in the classroom here at Miami-Dade College?
Well, Miami-Dade College has different programs on how we could incorporate social entrepreneurship into education. Aside from the Idea Center, in my classroom, we implement the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals project, which is a project that we work in tandem with the Institute for Civic Engagement and Democracy. And what we have our students do is we have them basically pick one of the 17 goals of the UN SDGs. Okay. Now, so that the viewers have a background on what it is. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals actually came from the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, that in the year 2000, they decided that there should be 8 goals originally to basically highlight what is the best way to promote sustainable or economic and social development throughout the world. So by the year 2015, it was from 2000 to 2015, many of the goals, many of the, let's say, benchmarks of the goals were achieved, and the question then revolved on how do we make these improvements sustainable. And so from the 8 goals, they developed 17 goals, which later basically became the Sustainable Development Goals. So these goals are now meant to be sustainable for another 15 years. So in my classroom, what we have is our students do service learning, and they get to pick a service learning agency related to one of the goals, and then once they pick one of those goals, they have to pick up a strategy or create a strategy on how to ameliorate that issue within our community, whether it's improving education or improving healthcare or climate action on land or on water and so forth, and creating sustainable cities. And so there are 17 goals that they get to pick on, and then they basically create some type of project in which they improve upon that goal. And a lot of the times the students that develop a project, they may later on go and apply for grants from the Clinton Global Initiative or some other foundations, and they turn what started off as a classroom project into a project that becomes sustainable in the future beyond the classroom in the community. So that's one way that we see social entrepreneurship begin to develop. A lot of the time students, when they're trying to come up with, let's say, an idea, or they're trying to come up with a nonprofit or some way that they could basically take on these community issues, giving it context, giving it a framework, giving them, let's say, an avenue in which they could try out different ideas through the UN Sustainable Development Goals tends to be a really good starting point. And we tend to use the UN Sustainable Development Goals project not just in international relations, but in American federal government. We see it in social environment. Wow. So these are just one of the many strategies that we use in the college, not only as a community college, but America's
Right.
let's say democracy's college to basically take on these issues and bring it on to
That's
the greater
excellent. No,
community.
and I think it's so realistic that it goes from theory to actual, it doesn't
Practice,
stop
right.
there. It goes to actual practice and implementation to actually make a change in the environment. I think that's the most important part. What's the utility? At the end of the day, everything you've learned, how do you utilize
apply it? Correct.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Awesome. You recently took a trip to the Council on Foreign Relations. Did they touch up on social entrepreneurship while you were there?
Well, I went to the Council on Foreign Relations to their annual professors conference that they host every year. I was sponsored by Dr. Padron. Dr. Padron was the former chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's one of the board members, one of the star board members on the Council on Foreign Relations. So I was very honored that he would nominate me to the conference. But at the conference, they spoke about different tools that are available to allow for professors that are using service learning, that are using model diplomacy, to incorporate it into the classroom. So there was a lot of resources available in the council, and basically they showed us what are best practices in implementing some of these ideas in social entrepreneurship.
Wow, so it truly is the buzz term of our time. It's really something that social entrepreneurship is the buzz term of our time.
It goes beyond, I believe, beyond a buzz term and into reality and practice. Because if you look at millennials, and millennials are people born in the area of the 2000s, a little bit before and after, they're not just looking for a job, they're looking for a sense of purpose, a sense of mission.
Right.
So they're trying to find out, how can I serve the community, but at the same time, how do I serve a greater purpose, a greater good? And giving them this avenue in social entrepreneurship really allows them to pursue their passions. And sometimes it may not just be a passion, it just may be an interest. But giving them the avenue to basically explore these different goals, these 17 goals.
Right.
So you want to do something of greater purpose. What is it that I'm really interested in? What can I focus it? The 17 goals gives them a way to begin to look at different policy areas that are interconnected. And then once they volunteer with an agency, they begin to get ideas of their own and how they could take it to the next level. And before you know it, you have projects that are being funded, not just by, let's say, private sources, but by the Clinton Global Initiative, by nonprofits, by other foundations. And they have now created not only a niche and basically a community need they're filling, but a job for themselves as well.
How can students be more involved with social entrepreneurship, Professor?
Well, they could take any of the courses here at Miami-Dade College that offers service learning. My course is one of them. Dr. Lanigan here at the college is another one. But there are many courses here that's going to offer service learning components to their course. And also they could get involved with the Idea Center here at Miami-Dade College.
Right.
But what I would recommend for students is find an area of interest that you feel passionate about, that you believe that there's some type of service or there's some type of need that maybe the for-profit sector is not providing, maybe because they don't believe there's a market, maybe it's not profitable. However, there is a need, and if that's the case, then you have to create a community-based organization to try to address that need if you feel that passionate about it.
If I may, from your experience, is there any students that you may know of that are tackling and I know it's very difficult, the problem of traffic in South Florida? That is a huge need that needs to be resolved. And I feel that no one, either public official or entrepreneur, no one has really gone all in trying to resolve the problem of traffic.
Well, we have students that are studying civil engineering, and traffic is one of the main issues that they look at. Also, if you look at people or students studying, or scholars studying public policy, they look at those issues. And it's interesting that you mentioned traffic, because there's a few initiatives in Tallahassee in the legislature this session that's looking to reorganize the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. How do you reorganize the surtax? One of the projects that we do within POS 2041 is a budget simulation where you have to come to a negotiation on dealing with issues such as infrastructure, dealing with traffic. Important. How do you basically pay for these services? How do you reorganize it? So the students have let's say, an introduction to the topic. Now, whether or not they pursue it as one of the goals in creating sustainable cities, because traffic would fall under infrastructure within the Sustainable Development Goals, and building sustainable cities. Because if you look at what is one of the top issues on lifting people out of intergenerational poverty, as studied by Nathaniel Henderson at Harvard University, is whether or not they have access to commuter zones that allows for this type of economic opportunities.
Right.
If people live within commuter zones where you have economic development, where you have economic opportunities, they are more likely to lift themselves out of poverty. And it actually rose as one of the top factors when it comes to lifting people out of poverty.
It's definitely a pressing issue here at home in South Florida. And I'm looking forward to see what the outcome of the Tallahassee is on this issue. Professor, thank you very much for being here and sharing your insight. Friends, thank you for watching MDC-TV on Comcast Channel 78 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99.
Miami-Dade College is a great college.
It changed my life. Miami-Dade is really like a family. They really embrace the students. They really have a way of making you feel wanted, making you feel loved, making you feel that you could really do what you desire to do.
I am very happy that I came to Miami-Dade College North. Wonderful faculty, wonderful advisors. I feel speechless because they're so good at what they do. I feel that students should not give up. They should become someone. They should be in a major that they love.
And Miami-Dade really, has made a huge impact on my life for the better.
I feel that everyone should do that. Everyone should take that extra step and continue their education. Come here to Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade is great.
Our guest for today is a TEDx speaker, international best-selling author, conscious business coach, and the founder of Thriver Lifestyle. She coaches women to step into their own power and create the life and business that is in alignment with your soul. She has merged over 15 years of marketing, event production, and business development experience with the mission to create a positive social impact. Her philosophy is that you are worthy of creating and living your dream life. Please welcome Marian Bacol Uba. Marian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Marian, so tell me about Thriver. What do you do? What is the mission?
Yes, so Thriver Lifestyle is actually what I created because of my own journey to becoming a thriver. And so going back to how things were, I've always been in marketing, 15 years.
Wow, okay.
I've had that whole corporate experience.
Right.
And growing up as a Asian American, I was always taught to, you check off the boxes, you kind of get the A's, you do all the things.
Oh, okay.
And I found myself actually having mental health issues. I was overworked, I was depressed, anxious, and I dealt with my PTSD and trauma, I hid it under, which a lot of people do, and we kind of hide it under the rug, and it exploded on me. In 2014, I actually used to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol, but I put it as a mask. No one ever knew because I did so well. I made, I had the title, made 6 figures, and I overdosed. And I had an out-of-body, near-death experience that changed my life. And so after that, I was like, okay, something has to change. And so I dove into spirituality, personal development, mindset mastery, and meditation. I really dove into it because I'm like, my whole life was outside things.
Were you, just ask, were you brought up in a certain religion, or, Asian American, is that, that's very broad, but what religion were you brought up under?
Yeah, well, I'm Filipino. Okay. So I grew up Roman Catholic. I actually went to Catholic school my whole life.
Oh, okay, wow, okay, wow. And how does that, are they aligned with other spiritual practices or things that you read, or are they opposed, or do they meet at some point?
You know what? And I studied after that. I studied a lot of other religions. The core of it is all love.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
But I think people's interpretations of it, justify oh, this is what you have to do. But if you really read the text and everything, the core is love. Right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right.
Yeah, it's right. We're all somehow connected, and I think everything works out better when you have a loving relationship, or love your neighbors, love your community,
love yourself.
Love yourself. That's important.
That's a big one.
Important too. A lot of people don't love themselves,
Yeah.
and it's very. I was going to say it's very hard love others if you don't love yourself, but it's probably impossible to love others if you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So you coach women.
Yes.
What were you inspired by? What are some of the practices? Like, what's your style of coaching? What do you incorporate in coaching?
Yes.
What is it that is? I mean, I guess it could be a lot of things, but what are people held back by? What are some of the barriers? That's what I'm asking.
Well, a lot of fear, and especially with the people that I work with, they think too much about what other people think.
Ah, that's important.
They do.
Yeah.
And the first thing I tell them is that, you know, they always say, but what if I disappoint my family, or I fail, or I do all this? And I tell them, the first thing you have to do is accept that that is actually very possible.
Yeah.
It's actually impossible not to get people pissed off or not have everyone happy, but you have to accept that and realize that your truth is your truth.
Yeah, that's true. And that's rough though, right? Because there's a lot of things that perhaps people want to do and like live your genuine life, but you're like, oh, what are other people going to think about me, right? Like, you know, that's kind of rough. And so that takes a lot of work to overcome, or what?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of self-love.
Right.
It's a lot of realizing that if you keep, and this was me, if I tried to be what for everyone else, and I wasn't following what I wanted to do, and I suffered. And a lot of people go through this. Look at all the mental health issues and suicide from Anthony Bourdain and
shocker,
you know, Kate Spade. There are people at the height of what they have, fame, fortune, all this, yet.
So there's more. Happened? Yeah. And I think that's a big misconception, that people think that you're unhappy because you don't have money, or you don't have success, or you don't have fame, or whatever it is that people are searching. But then you find these like famous people, they're committing suicide. So it goes back to, well, why did you want to be famous? Why did you want to have money? And you keep going back and back, and it's probably because you wanted to be loved by other people. You wanted to be significant or important, and that sort of thing. So, it's important to really address that. And you said a good thing, that if you don't do what it is that you want to do, I think you're going to be unhappy.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's and happiness is like. It's like a big...
Well, it's key. It's being purposeful, actually. It's knowing that you have a purpose in terms of you feel fulfilled. Right? And not purpose where, and I think this is a misconception. People always think, I have to find my purpose, like it's a buried treasure. But that happens when you start diving into the things that light you up, that really like get you excited. You know, once you start diving into that, you start uncovering and unfolding your purpose.
Right. So it's kind of like a pull versus push thing. When you find your purpose, it kind of like pulls you to it, would you say? Yeah.
Like I didn't know I was going to be doing this work, but I just dove into it. So I started sharing all the things that I was learning and I started putting together really what I thought was necessary, strategy and soul, together. And people started reaching out, and I started coaching.
Do you think sometimes maybe you're like, I don't want to get too deep here, but
I'm an open book. I love going deep.
Do you think sometimes like we're guided to do things?
Absolutely.
Or it's your own free will? I mean, I wonder. I mean,
well, it's both.
You think it's both?
I think it's both. We're always guided, but it's up to us to follow. Just like intuition, right?
Right.
But intuition's a muscle. Everyone has it, but not everyone practices their muscle.
Right.
So we get a lot of times, right? Don't you have, I think everyone has this, where you always tell yourself, oh, I knew it. Like, I knew I should have done this or not done that.
I had a lot of those moments.
Right? So you knew it, but you didn't go towards it. So you weren't practicing your intuitive muscle because you fought against it.
Because sometimes that intuition is not aligned with what you want to happen.
Yeah.
And that leads us to, whether it's free will or destiny, or do they meet at some point? Do you think sometimes that, is there such a thing as destiny?
I definitely think so, but it's up to us to be courageous and step forward, because a lot of things that are great and amazing are not easy. It takes a lot of courage to step out there and speak your truth, and when you know that people aren't going to always pay attention to you or approve of what you want to do. But we have to continuously, as we get to each level up and know that we need to take courage to be vulnerable, to share authentically, to really live and design the life and business that you want.
Right. What about for people that have an the inner conflict? Humanity is full of inner conflict. I mean, you know, because I wonder, and even for me, I've had different situations where it's like, well, I wanted to pursue one thing, and you know, I'll break through concrete to get there, but it just doesn't happen, you know. And then all of a sudden, you're like by not even anything you did, you're like guided somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, oh my God, that's so. It's so weird because.
But don't think of it as a waste of time, because
Right.
knowing that didn't work out, that didn't feel right, is
Right.
just a sign that, okay, you learn from that. Everything is a learning lesson. There's
Right.
no set. I don't believe in failure. I believe that it's all a stepping stone to directing you into where you need to go.
Right, but isn't it? I mean, don't you think it is a little, I don't know, disappointing that if there is destiny, then kind of like the things that you're attempting are probably a waste of time because you're going to be
No.
guided somewhere else.
I don't believe it's a waste of time, because oftentimes it's better to try it than have regret, right? If you didn't
Well, that's a
try
good
it,
point. Yeah,
you're
that is a
always
good
like,
point.
oh, what if I did this? What if? That's the worst feeling and vibration. They actually
Right.
did a study on people
Yeah.
on their deathbeds, and
Wow.
regret was a huge thing. You know, they
Yeah.
regret the things they didn't do than the
Right.
things they did.
Well, that's a great point. You know, the last thing you want to do, you know, failure, everyone's going to have to deal with it. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you think you are.
Yeah.
I don't care how special you are.
Every successful person, every person has failed.
Absolutely. You're going to
Yeah.
deal with failure, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to feel bad, but you have to keep going.
Yeah.
But regret, yeah, there's, you know, if you never attempted it, that's a whole different level of failure, I think. So,
Yeah.
so Marian, so if Miami-Dade College students want to get involved, you know, with Thriver, if they want to learn more about coaching, what can they do?
So they can actually go on my website if they have any questions. But I think if they're interested in pursuing coaching, really ask themselves, you know, what is it that you want to help people with?
Right.
What problem do you solve? How do you want to serve? It's not really what is it in it for me,
Okay.
because I think that's the wrong approach. When it comes to conscious business and social entrepreneurship, it's really about being purpose-driven.
Right,
You know,
nice.
how can we do something that helps impact other people's lives or our environment or something, a cause?
Right.
And the byproduct of it is a successful business, is profit. But that's not what leads it.
Right.
You know, I think that's what we have a duty as human beings. You know, we all live in this earth that it's our home, and we all are connected, whether people accept it or not. We're all connected in some shape or form.
Right.
You know, in order to have a for-purpose business, really think about how you can serve others. And the most successful products and services that feel good to people are ones that give back. And in turn, you know, they solve a problem. They
Right.
serve people in some shape or form.
Yeah, and I think also, I think the world is moving in that direction.
Yes.
Because as we become more interconnected with, you know, technology and globalization and everything that's happened, I think that historically businesses, corporations have acted in a unethical way. And I mean, it's true. Historically, that's a fact.
Yeah, it's
right?
been profit first.
It's been profit first, and you know, whatever it takes, and you know, so on and so forth. And I think, especially the younger generation, they're looking to be involved or engage in business activities that give back and that have and that do good.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much
Look at
injustice in the world.
Tom's,
There really is.
look at Honest Beauty. Those are all products. They're billion-dollar companies,
Right.
but they have, like Tom's, they donate to a person who doesn't have shoes in a
Right.
developing country. Honest Beauty is all about having products that are organic and healthy, not without the chemicals, and they're pushing forward for legislation for more transparency
Wow.
in, you know, the chemicals that we put inside us. So people want more of this type of impact, you know, purposeful business.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it goes back to having a purpose in life.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, there's so many unhappy people. And,
Yeah.
and that's because there's no, I mean, I think human beings really need a purpose in life. I mean, they do. I mean, even, you know, I mean, think about like guys in the military. The purpose is that there's something more important than you.
Yeah.
And that's something more important than you is your family, your community, your country, so on and so forth. And I think even civilians need that as well. They need a purpose.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And I think for the students listening, if there's something that really calls to them, the things that keep them up at night, that they do so much research on, that
Right.
they feel passionate about, follow that. Because those are pings.
Even now you would say even if perhaps they're that's not the plan that their family wants for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even if that's not right, like that,
Because
and that's a challenge,
day,
though, right? That's a challenge.
Of course, and I went through this. I had a very strict family.
Yeah,
you know, growing up, and I tried it their way, and what happened?
You got to be you, right?
Exactly,
You know?
and I learned it the hard way, and I think
Right.
there's a way to circumvent that.
Yeah.
And I think we have an opportunity now. There's so much opportunity with the internet and with creating businesses that really tailor fit into what you're passionate about.
Right.
And you can be profitable too. You know, follow that.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when you're working long hours and when you fall and you keep needing to get up,
Yeah.
because entrepreneurship is not easy.
Right.
It's that drive, that fire inside you, because you really love
it.
what you're doing and
Right.
believe in it. That's what's going to push you forward.
Right. So what would you say to a student now that is in a particular major, but by now they realize that, oh my God, this is not for me. You know, should they stick it out and finish, or should they just follow their true purpose and just switch?
Well, what I say is, first, don't let other people's opinions, because they're like, oh, you need to do this or that.
Right.
Really tap into themselves. This is
Right.
why I'm a huge proponent for meditation.
Okay.
Instead of listening to the voice of your family, friends, of what you should do, or do this because it's going to make you money, tap into like, what really is it? Is it your decision or is it other people's? And if it's truly yours and you know that you're going to regret it if you don't do it,
Right.
then
That's a good point. There's one of my favorite authors is William Walker Atkinson, and he talks about how thoughts are created.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he brings forward is, well, it's kind of tricky, especially in today's age. Well, what he says is this: you have to monitor your thoughts and kind of differentiate what thoughts are your thoughts that you originated, and what are other things that you're being influenced by.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue in today. Not only peer pressure, family pressure, but also because all of the media that we have today, you're just bombarded by media. So
Absolutely.
you really have to spend time alone
Yes.
and really figure out, okay, who am I really, and
Yeah.
what is artificial from the environment. Marianne, thank you so much for being here.
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Friends, thank you so much for watching MDC-TV. Till next time, we'll see you then.